Well, hi, everybody. It's Fred Oduye and Rick Lawrence here for another conversation around reachable reconciliation. And if this is the first one of our conversations you've watched, just a reminder that Fred, founder of Reachable Reconciliation, has developed a process, a five-step or 5R process that helps relational systems become healthier, more reconciling. It helps to bridge some of the unbridgeable problems and challenges that churches and organizations have faced around tensions in their relationships. So those 5 R's, just as a reminder, are reactions, reflection, repairs, reaching, and relationship. These things flow into and out of each other, but they're part of Fred's whole template for how to bring about a healthy, God-honoring relational environments. And Fred and I just watched in our devotion time for our Vibrant Faith team, I showed a TED Talk from Stefan Harris, who's one of the world's leading vibraphonists. He's a jazz artist who's been Grammy-winning jazz artist who plays the vibraphone. And his band is an improvisational band. And he did a TED Talk for a bunch of business leaders called "There Are No Mistakes on the Bandstand." And he showed live in front of this audience of business leaders how improvisational jazz musicians work together, how they create out of nothing in the moment. And one of the things that he spotlighted was this whole idea of discordant notes, how when you're in a team environment like a improv jazz quartet, someone might play a note that normally you would have stopped and said, no, that's the wrong note. But in a jazz quartet, you don't treat those discordant notes as a wrong note. You accept them. And you let them lead you somewhere. And I thought, Fred, it would be fascinating to hear you riff a little bit on the reality of discordant notes in this whole conversation about reconciliation. And how do you react to the discordant notes? What's the role of them? And what do we do in response to the discordant notes that come up inevitably in these conversations? So I'd love for you to just talk about that.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Rick. When I heard that video, there was something that jumped out off the bat. When Stefan was giving that TED Talk, the first thing he said was, I'm going to start with what I just heard. I was like, oh, wow, that's powerful, right? He's got this whole band set up. Everybody's got a different instrument, but he heard a note that was different, right? So it wasn't with their same playlist. It wasn't part of their usual music, if you will, but it was a different note. And rather than him saying, hey, you're out of key, or hey, that note doesn't fit the music or the song that we're playing, he said, I'm going to start with that note that's different. I said, wow, that is powerful, right? Because even in his words, what I just heard, there's the aspect of listening when there is something that is not part of our usual pattern. And so as people, when we encounter another culture, a person that's not like us, a person who has a different sound or different vocabulary, whatever it may be, we're more apt to try to get them to fit in with our culture than we are to say, let me pause and listen to what this person represents, how God actually made them. What does the Imago Dei look like when we're thinking about that? Hey, we're all images of God. So this is a new sound, if you will. And I love that because so often when it comes to diversity, the person who is the oddball, if you will, may feel like they have to code switch. So they have to adjust themselves to fit the pattern that's already there. But when you have leadership that says, no, you represent a different sound because we're all branches, part of the same vine of music, right? Let's figure out how to adjust our sound so that the family of the music is represented. I just love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other profound thing coming out of that is he was suggesting that if you accept the discordant note, it can lead to a kind of beauty that you could not have created otherwise.
Absolutely.
The discordant note sort of forces you, if you accept it and you honor it and give it dignity, it forces you to change your music somehow. And what he was suggesting is there's something sacred and beautiful about what comes out of that.
Oh yeah, it's new music, right? You know what I mean? It's a new ringtone. It's a new voice, something new to the ear. And I think we miss that in our environments because we're playing the same music so often. But if you take time to listen and see how you can incorporate something that is different, that's how vision comes. That's how expansion comes. That's how we get diversity, right?
Yeah. You know, Fred, you've given this example to me several times when you're working with, you work with ministry leaders all over the place. And you had an encounter once with a ministry leader who admitted to you that he was a racist.
Yeah.
But sadly, the outcome of that was eventually he left. He left the church. He left the process. He left. Yeah. So here's a discordant note for him that he's actually admitting something's really hard to admit too, and he doesn't stay in the band, I guess is a way of saying it. The discordant note is so discordant that he can't accept it somehow. What do you think is the difference in as you work with people when they get a discordant note but somehow they accept it? What are those people doing?
Yeah, well, you know, it's kind of that high risk, high reward, low risk, low reward. And so there's a risk when you want to change the tune. And some people are not willing to take that risk because maybe just like they won't buy the song, right? They might not buy into the environment if we make a shift. And so I think this person or people like that feel as if everyone else won't buy the music anymore. But what they're missing is they're limiting God by saying that, hey, maybe this won't, maybe we're not able to expand the volume of what we're producing by value adding. And so, I think that's probably where he is. Yeah. And so
good.
Do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that sticks out to me here at the end of this little conversation is just going back to Stefan Harris. So he's the leader of his quartet, and he's standing in front of a bunch of businessmen and women, trying to help them value the mistake, or the discordant note that they might hear, and value and accept it. And I was impressed that he's a leader who's trying to set for his own band the value of the dignity of giving people the opportunity to have a discordant note, and that in your discordant note, we might actually change the music. And I think for those that are watching this right now, that one of the takeaways is you often need a leader, someone who can help you raise up that value in your context and give it the dignity it deserves, as someone who can help break through. And Fred, that's what you do. That's the role that you play in all this. And so I just want to invite people to take a look down below your video here, and for ways to connect with Fred, to start this process, at least have a conversation about what this might look like in your church or organization, because Fred's a coach who can help coach you through this process of dignity giving in your environment, so that the discordant notes become part of the music instead of something that you shut off or shut down. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. There's multiple ways to connect with Fred. Reach out, take a risk, as Fred has just said. And we'll see you again. Go ahead.
It's about who I am, and what I do matters and is valuable, right?
There you have it. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again next time for our next conversation.